Chapter 7. The Easter Bunny is Weird. It was Mr. Klutz who poked his head into the doorway. "Are you having a good time?" he asked. "Yes!" shouted all the girls, expected for Alexandria. "No!" shouted all the boys in Alexandria. "This looks like fun," said Mr. Klutz. "Did you ever dye your Easter eggs, Mr. Klutz?" asked Ryan. "Sure I did," he replied. "I was a boy once, you know." "Once only?" I asked. "I'm a boy all the time." Everybody laughed, even though I didn't say anything funny. Mr. Klutz leaned down so he could get a good look at our colored eggs. That's when I noticed something. Mr. Klutz head looked just like an egg. "Hey, Mr. Klutz," I said, "can we dye your head?" "Well, it would be bad," I said. All the kids stopped talking. Mr. Klutz was looking at me. Mrs. Hannah was also looking at me. Everybody was looking at me. I thought I heard crickets chirping. "I'll make a deal with you, AJ," Mr. Klutz told me. "I'll let you dye my head if you can recite the 8 timetables." We were all learning the 8 tables at school. I wasn't sure if I remembered the whole thing. 8 times 1 is 8, I said. Because 1 8 can only be 8. Any dumbhead knows that. "Right," said Mr. Klutz. 8 times 2 is 16, I said. Because 8 plus 8 is 16. "Yes. 8 times 3 is 24, I said, adding another 8. 8 times 4 is 32, Andrea whispered in my ear. 32, I said. I kept going. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. When I didn't know an answer, Andrea or Emily whispered it in my ear. Finally, I got to the end, and 8 times 10 is 80, I said. "That's right," said Mr. Klutz. "Now you may dye my head." We couldn't dip Mr. Klutz's head into a cup because it was too big. Mrs. Hannah gave us tips so we could dab the dye on his head. Mr. Klutz said we did a great time dyeing his head red, white, blue, and green. When the dye was dry, Andrea drew a butterfly right in the middle. It looked cool. After Mr. Klutz left and he took his dyed head with him, it was cleanup time. While we cleaned up, Mrs. Hannah turned to the broom box. In the song, "Here Comes the Peter Cottontail," started playing. "Hey, guess who's coming, kids?" I asked Mrs. Hannah. "Santa Claus," I asked. "Santa Claus comes at Christmas, you dumbhead," said Andrea. "Oh, snap," said Ryan. "I was going to say, so is your face," to Andrea, "but you'll never believe in a 1,100,000 years who walked in at the moment. It was a giant Easter bunny. He was walking right into the door." "Ouch," the Easter bunny yelled. "Who put this door here? I can't see through anything this stupid bunny had." That voice sounded familiar. I knew I had heard it before. "Hey, the Easter bunny isn't supposed to talk," said Michael. "Oh yeah, I forgot," said the Easter bunny. "And he's not supposed to say the word stupid," said Andrea. "That's not a nice word. Sorry." A bunch of grown-ups crowded around the door and started taking pictures like they never saw a guy dressed up as a bunny before. Right? The Easter bunny was carrying a basket. I got on my tippy toes to see if there were any peeps in the basket. But the only thing in the bunch of baskets were a fake green plastic grass. "What is up with that stuff? Do you have any peeps?" I asked. "Sorry, kid," said the Easter bunny. "I'm not allowed to talk." And then he hopped away. "I thought the Easter bunny was supposed to give us candy," said Neil, the Nud kid. "If I don't get some candy soon, I'm going to pass out," said Michael. They were right. if if it was Easter, and so far we didn't get any candy. No chocolate, no marshmallows, no Peeps, no nothing. And as we did roll the eggs around the grass and dyed them. You know, I said to the gang, sometimes tell me that guy was not for real. The Easter Bunny. What do you mean? Asked Ryan. He probably was a lunatic who kidnapped the real Easter Bunny and stole his costume and tried the railroad tracks on the outskirts of town, I said. That stuff happens all the time, you know. Arlo stopped trying to scare Emily, said Andrea. I'm scared, said Emily. I thought Emily was going to start crying and run out of the room like she usually does. But as it turned out, we all went running out of the room. Everybody came outside. Mrs. Bubbles shouted, It's time for the big Easter egg hunt! Chapter 8. The Golden Egg. While we were inside that whole time, the grown-ups must have been outside, hiding the Easter eggs. Everybody ran out of the room and gathered on the back porch around Mayor Hubble and Mrs. Bubbles. Okay, kids, said the mayor, there are hundreds of plastic eggs scattered all over the lawn, and there is a little something special for you in each one of them, said Mrs. Bubbles. Me and the gang looked at each other's mouths. The word candy. I licked my lips. Finally, we were going to get candy. It was about time. Their servant guys came around handing out empty bags to everybody. Oh, one thing you should mention, Mrs. Bubbles said. There it is one special egg. It is a golden egg. Ooh, everybody said, because golden stuff is always cool. What's so special about the golden egg? Ryan shouted. You know, the Burger Queen next to the mall, said Mayor Hubble. I talked them into sponsoring this year's golden egg. Sponsor? What does that mean? I asked Michael. It means if you open up the golden egg, said Mrs. Bubbles, you will find some $100 bills inside. There will be donated to Burger Queen. Wow, everybody said, which is Mom upside down. How many $100 bills? One of the grown-ups shouted. 10, said Mayor Hubble. $100? I'm glad we studied the 10 times table in school. 10 times 100 is, add a 0. No, add 2 zeros. No, that's not it. $1,000, Andrea shouted. $1,000? That's almost $1 million! Wow, everybody said, which is Mom upside down. Yes, said Mrs. Bubbles. One of you is going to go home with $1,000 today. Everybody was excited, even though the grown-ups suddenly they all stopped drinking coffee and talking about the weather. They were putting the cups down and inching closer to the lawn. There was electricity in the air. On your mark, said the mayor. Get set. Go get 'em! Go get those eggs! Mrs. Bubble blew a whistle, and then, next thing you knew it, there were a million hundred people running all over the lawn. Out of my way! Somebody shouted. Let's go! $1,000! Grab the eggs! Hurry up! Everybody was freaking out. It was like if they were giving away free candy. Oh, wait a minute. They were giving away free candy. I ran onto the lawn and spotted a few eggs that were behind the tree. I didn't even have the time to open up to get the treats out before I scooped them into my bag. I wanted to find more eggs. Those first graders were monsters at the egg roll. But you should have seen the parents at the egg hunt. They were shoving each other, elbowing each other, and tripping each other out of the way. Others were trampling over the flowers and bushes. They all had crazy looks in their eyes. I hadn't seen grown-ups act like this since the last time my dad was late for work and couldn't find his car keys. "I gotta find that golden egg," some guy said as he shoved an old lady out of his way. "No! If I find it first," said the old lady, who whacked this guy with her cane. You should have been there. Those grown-ups were hilarious. If you ask me, grown-ups like money as much as kids like candy. Chapter 9. Don't open that door. Everybody was running out the lawn like crazy people for 10 minutes. I got 5 eggs myself. It looked like we had scooped up all the eggs of them. But so far, nobody had found the golden egg. Grown-ups were still wandering around the lawn like zombies looking for it. I went over to the porch where the gang was standing. Andrea and Emily came over too. "Let's open up our eggs and eat candy," said Ryan. "But that golden egg is still out there," said Michael. "If we eat our candy now, somebody else will find it." "Where could it be?" asked Neil. "We have to think outside the box," said Alexandria. I looked around and I didn't see any boxes. "What do boxes have to do with anything?" I asked. I wasn't even inside a box. How can you think anything inside a box anyway? It would have to be a really big box. And there aren't any boxes around here. "Arlo, chill," Andrea said. "There are hundreds of people out there on the lawn right now." "Right," we all said. "And none of them could find the golden egg. Right? Right?" we all said. "So the golden egg must be hidden inside the house." Andrea and I said the same thing at the same time. We all tiptoed inside Hubble's manor. None of the grown-ups noticed us because they were still looking for the golden egg on the lawn. There must be 1,100,000 doors. "Don't open that door, AJ," warning Ryan. "Why not?" I asked. "Whenever they open a door in a scary movie," Ryan said, "there's always a crazy guy hiding behind it with an axe." "That's ridiculous," said Michael. "Believe me, there's no crazy guy hiding behind the door with an axe." "You're right," I said. He might have a chainsaw." "Stop trying to scare Emily," said Andrea. "I'm scared," said Emily. My hand was still on the doorknob. What if there really was a crazy guy with an axe or a chainsaw hiding behind the door? I was faced with the hardest decision of my life. I didn't know what to do. I looked at Alexandria. Alexandria looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at Michael. Michael looked at Neil. Neil looked at Andrea. Andrea looked at Emily. Everybody was looking at each other. I took a deep breath and I turned the doorknob. I pushed open the door, and you will never believe in 100 million years who was sitting in that room. It was the Easter Bunny, and he had no head.